how I made $210,822 selling a PDF and a video on the internet. I have two info products on the internet. The first one is a product about AWS. It's called The Good Parts of AWS. It's a 173-page PDF released in December 2019 with pre-orders since October 2019. And then the second one is called Everyone Can Build a Twitter Audience. This is a 100-minute video released in April 2020 with no pre-orders. These two products made $237,207 in sales so far and $210,822 in profit, for an average profit of $24,802 a month. The AWS product took about 160 hours to produce, while the Twitter product only took 16 hours. But in this business, creating the content is generally the easy part. Finding customers is the bigger challenge. I've seen many creators succeed with various approaches, but I'm only familiar with one, and it goes like this. You find something you know really well, and you give everything you know about it for free. You do it on social networks, forums, and wherever people interested in your topic hang around. If you manage to get some attention, you will inevitably start getting questions, and these questions become your market research. You start answering the best way you can, and whatever doesn't fit in a short response becomes an opportunity for an info product. Then if you choose to do the product, you'll have an audience to promote it to, an audience who already told you it wants to learn more about the topic, and that it wants to learn from you specifically. But how big should your audience be for this to be viable? I don't know, unfortunately. The fate of your products will depend on many things, but if you have an audience that's asking you questions, I'd say the odds are in your favor. So let's dig into what happened since I put my first info product on the market. First, let's take a look at my audience size. Before I share the graph and the rest of this article, this comes from indiehackers.com. It was written September 2020. And I mentioned on a recent episode of the show, I think it was 2 episodes ago, that the Indie Hackers podcast was a huge inspiration for this show, because I love these actionable stories of indie hackers, of builders who are supporting themselves and exactly how they're doing it. And this is one of those stories. And I am sitting right now in the Warsaw Airport recording this. Lots of commotion around. I have a flight in 45 minutes, which is just enough time to share the rest of this article with you. All right, so this is the person's audience size. If you're listening on YouTube, I'm showing a graph. The graph starts December 25th, 2019, and it starts at 12,000 people. Less than a year later, 2020, September 25th, the graph is at only 44,000 people. And this is what the author says. And this is on Twitter. So I had a bit over 12,000 Twitter followers when my first product went on the market. Directly or indirectly, every dollar I made in this business can be attributed to this initial audience. I could have created the same 2 products before I had an audience, and I'm almost certain I wouldn't have sold any. The initial success brought with it all the future success through testimonials and word of mouth. So let's take a look at how the business grew since that launch. Oh wow, what a crazy graph. So sales and profit track each other very closely. Starts at 0, December 25th, 2019. And the guy had already built up a Twitter audience of 12,000 followers by this point. And then 5 months later, sales hit an inflection point and spike up. April 25th, 2020. At this point, sales were around $75,000. And a few months later, September 25th, 2020, sales are over $225,000. There seems to be a correlation between my audience size and revenue, but this relationship is more complex than it seems. New followers seem to bring new sales, but new sales also seem to bring new followers. I don't try to read too much into this relationship, but I can confidently say that having attention is good for this business. And it's not the follower count that matters most, it's how many people know about you and want your perspective. This is not easy to measure, but you'll know when it happens because you keep getting lots of questions. That's the signal. So let's jump into the performance of each product to see if we can learn something useful about how they were marketed. First, the AWS product. So now I'm showing a graph of the income for the AWS product. The author writes, we can see there was an initial boost from the launch that lasted for about a month, and then sales stabilized at a steady rate. Then there was another boost mid-March, partly because of a reduction in price and partly from a new ad campaign. More on these campaigns later. That momentum has slowed down since, but it's still chugging along at a reasonable rate. Very interesting. Now let's look at the Twitter product. Oh wow, the Twitter product growth is crazy. Oh my gosh. So I'm going to read what the author says. The author goes, this launch was very similar to the other product, about $40,000 in the first 2 weeks. And this is despite having an audience twice as large, 24,000 versus 12,000 followers. Interesting. So when the person launched the AWS product and made $40,000 in the first 2 weeks, the person had an audience size of 12,000 followers. When this Twitter product was launched, the person's audience size was $24,000, but the product made the same amount of money in the first 2 weeks. However, the Twitter product took off much better after the third week, and it settled at a stronger, steady rate. And now here's a graph of how both products compare on top of each other. And the Twitter product has a much stronger growth curve than the AWS product. I'd expected the Twitter product to have a bigger initial spike considering my larger audience at launch. Instead, the launch was almost identical, but its momentum had been significantly stronger compared to my first product. I have some thoughts about what contributed to this dynamic. First, the Twitter product was sold at almost twice the price of the AWS product. Second, in hindsight, I think I set the launch price a bit too high for the Twitter product, which likely dampened the launch spike. In fact, after 3 weeks, I reduced the base price by $10, and that appears to have untapped a large pool of demand that was likely reluctant to purchase at the original price. Take a look at how the average sale price changed over time in this graph that I'm sharing and how it affected the sales volume. So in this graph, there are these two big drops, and the author actually describes the graph. So if you're listening and not watching, you can still get a good description of it. The author says, for now, ignore those two big drops. We'll analyze that experiment later on. This chart shows my attempt at tweaking prices over time to find new demand. With the AWS product, I started low and went high, then went low again. With the Twitter product, I started high and kept going lower. My general takeaway from all this experimentation is that optimal pricing for consumer products is almost all about psychology, and what seems rational might not be very effective. Let me explain. Man, this post is great. In theory, the best way to maximize profits from a digital product is to start with a high price and lower it over time. This is very common with movies. Disney just released Mulan last week for $30. After a few months, it will likely be on Amazon Video for $15. Then a few months later, you'll be able to rent it for $5. And then a year or two later, you'll find it for free on Netflix. I tried to follow a similar approach with my second product, but I misjudged the psychological aspect. Basically, it's tough to get $100 from your most loyal fans and then to go promote the same product at $50 a few weeks later. If I were to start all over again, I would price the Twitter product between $35 and $45, and I suspect it would have done much better in that range. But even with this knowledge, now I'm reluctant to drop the price drastically because I'd have to promote the price change to the same audience that includes thousands of my most supportive customers who paid the original price, and I think that could be a short-term gain, long-term loss. P.S. Steve Jobs faced this exact problem when he dropped the price of the original iPhone after just 2 months. Oh man, and there's this letter from Steve Jobs to all iPhone customers about how he dropped the price. Steve Jobs was a master of sales and copywriting and marketing. I gotta read this letter. This is an apology letter from Steve Jobs to iPhone customers after he dropped the price of the iPhone. He writes, I have received hundreds of emails from iPhone customers who are upset about Apple dropping the price of iPhone by $200 2 months after it went on sale. After reading every one of these emails, I have some observations and conclusions. First, I am sure that we are making the correct decision to lower the price of the 8GB iPhone from $599 to $399, and that now is the right time to do it. iPhone is a breakthrough product, and we have the chance to go for it this holiday season. iPhone is so far ahead of the competition, and now it will be affordable by even more customers. It benefits both Apple and every iPhone user to get as many new customers as possible in the iPhone X. We strongly believe the $399 price will help us do just that this holiday season. Second, being in technology for 30 plus years, I can attest to the fact that the technology road is bumpy. There is always change and improvement, and there is always someone who bought a product before a particular cutoff date and misses the new price or the new operating system or the new whatever. This is life in the technology lane. If you always wait for the next price cut or to buy the new improved model, you'll never buy any technology product because there is always something better and less expensive on the horizon. The good news is that if you buy products from companies that support them well, like Apple tries to do, you will receive years of useful and satisfying service from them even as newer models are introduced. Third, even though we are making the right decision to lower the price of the iPhone, and even though the technology road is bumpy, we need to do a better job taking care of our early iPhone customers as we aggressively go after new ones with a lower price. Our early customers trusted us, and we must live up to that trust with our actions in moments like these. Therefore, we have decided to offer every iPhone customer who purchased an iPhone from either Apple or AT&T and who was not receiving a rebate or any consideration a $100 store credit towards the purchase of any product at an Apple retail store or the Apple online store. Details are still being worked out and will be posted on Apple's website next week. Stay tuned. We want to do the right thing for our valued iPhone customers. We apologize for disappointing some of you, and we are doing our best to live up to your high expectations of Apple. Signed, Steve Jobs, Apple CEO. And this is on Wayback Machine, actually, because this is no longer live on the Apple website. And it has a really concise URL, apple.com/hot news/open iPhone letter. And again, it's no longer live on the Apple website, so I just read it from Wayback Machine. All right, back to the original article. With my first product, and again, this is the AWS product, I went the other direction. I took pre-orders at $24, then launched it at $28, then increased it to $38 after a month. However, the $38 price appeared to meet some resistance, and the product lost some momentum. Then the COVID pandemic hit in mid-March, and I took that as an opportunity and excuse to reduce the price to $15. This resulted in a significant second boost, which helped generate momentum from new word of mouth that has carried on until now. I have no specific advice on pricing, and I only have experience with consumer products. Info products sold to businesses can likely command different prices. However, after 261 days in this business, my inclination is to err on a lower price at launch and make it up in volume. Selling more units at a lower price has highly beneficial side effects, including being easier to do, better reviews, better customer satisfaction, fewer refunds, and most importantly, the multiplicative effects of increased word of mouth. In this business, selling 100 products for $1 each is a lot better than selling one product for $100, because in the first case, you'll potentially get 100 people promoting your product for free. This is why people have high-priced products and then lower-priced products, because they have the lower-priced products that do this, but then they want to have those high-priced products. And a lot of people who do this say that it's really the high-priced products that make all the money. For example, Ali Abdaal, he went on the My First Million podcast and talked about this. He made $5 million from his YouTube course, which he priced at $5,000. And most of the money that he's made has been from this YouTube course. But he has a lot of smaller products that are way less expensive and get people into his funnel. And people share these products and promote his brand as well. The author shows another chart and says, the chart below shows what I think is the opportunity I missed with my Twitter product. Oh man, crazy. So there's all these spikes in this chart. And the author says, note how the AWS product sold significantly more units throughout its lifetime, excluding the recent spike, despite my audience being about half the size. Also, based on the engagement I get, I'm convinced that my audience is more interested in Twitter than AWS. My conclusion is that the Twitter product could have sold significantly more units than my first product if I had priced it lower, and it would have likely made more profit through larger volumes and increased word of mouth. Okay, now let's look at that extreme spike from last month. This was the result of a tweet where I announced a 1-hour promotion where anyone could get my products for any price they wanted with a $1 minimum. The tweet was seen over 150,000 times, and it generated almost $8,000 in revenue from 2,559 sales. This is obviously not something I can do again anytime soon, but it seems like it worked as a one-off promotion. My concern was that this would eat revenue from customers that would have likely bought at full price in the future, and I'm sure there was a bit of that, but the benefits from getting the product in the hands of thousands of new people appears to have countered that downside. Both products continued to sell at their regular rate since that promotion ended. Very interesting. Also note how the Twitter product sold twice as many units as the AWS product through this promotion, despite getting equal treatment from me. I think this is more evidence that there's significantly more interest in the Twitter topic within my organic reach. Next, we're going to look at another marketing experiment I tried with the AWS product. I started experimenting with paid ads back in January. I gave up very quickly. First, I couldn't find a reasonable cost per click rate amongst popular advertising platforms except for Reddit. On Reddit, I was able to show an ad in the AWS subreddit for about 50 cents a click. It started quite promising, but after a few days, it was barely breaking even, so I decided to stop. Then when the COVID pandemic hit, I heard that advertising rates were plummeting, so I decided to give it another go. This time I was able to show my ads for just 10 cents a click, and the initial results were excellent. I kept tweaking things to try to find more availability at higher CPC bids, but eventually the rates became competitive again around mid-June, and I was struggling to break even. Even if I had more time to invest in paid ads, there's likely more opportunity there, but for now I chose to invest my time elsewhere and I stopped the campaign. The following is a chart I was watching on a daily basis to assess my ad performance. And it's a chart called Daily Profits from Ads, the Good Parts of AWS, and now the post is wrapping. Finally, I want to show you some of my top performing sources of direct sales. So the announcement tweet for the Twitter product made $20,000. The announcement tweet for the AWS product made $16,500. And the person links to all of these different tweets. This is actually the announcement tweet for the Twitter product. It's probably going to be a thread. I'm loading it right now. No, it's not a thread. It's very short. It's out. Everyone can build a Twitter audience. Credibility, measure of success, Twitter funnel, make people find you, bio, how to tweet, engagement, inspiration, what not to tweet, what not to do, starter strategy. You can watch it now. And the product is on Gumroad, and that was the tweet that announced it. And this made $20,000. The AWS tweet is actually a thread, so I'm not going to read it. But the beginning of the tweet is similar to the Twitter one that I just read. The Reddit ad for the AWS product made $13,700. The tweet where the author first discounted the base price of the Twitter product by $10, that tweet made $13,500. The Gumroad link in the Twitter bio made $12,000. This person is documenting everything. This is great. The author's personal website, which gets almost all of its traffic from the Twitter bio, the personal website made $9,300. Another tweet mentioning the $10 price discount made almost $9,000. The pay what you want tweet made almost $8,000. Another tweet mentioning the Twitter product made $6,600. The email announcing the release of my Twitter product to 880 people on the list made $6,300. And then a post on Hacker News where I shared some stats from the AWS product launch that made $5,000. And the author concludes, "Thank you for reading, and I hope you found this useful. If you have any questions, ask me anything, and I'll give you my best answer." That is from Daniel Vassallo. It is on indiehackers.com. The link will be shared in the description for this podcast. I found this very useful. Hope you did too. And now I got to go catch my flight. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you again tomorrow. Bye now.